My family demanded I cancel my wedding, so my sister could have her special moment, but I discovered she was cheating on her boyfriend. And I exposed her just in time, destroying their plans and freeing myself from 28 years of being invisible. I'm 28 years old. I work in digital marketing, and honestly, I need to get this off my chest because what happened these last few months basically destroyed what was left of my relationship with my family. The thing is that always, and when I say always, I mean literally, for as long as I can remember, I've been the invisible daughter. You know? Like my parents had two daughters, but only one really mattered. And spoiler alert, it wasn't me. My younger sister, Ashley, who's 25, was always the golden child, the princess, the one who could do whatever, and my parents would defend her to death. I was just, I don't know, the practice daughter or something, the one who existed to do things right while Ashley could screw up over and over and everyone would act like it was adorable. I grew up with that. I guess you get used to a certain level of shit when it's all you know. I remember when I was like 10 years old, I won a writing contest at school, like a pretty big award for my age, and my parents didn't even go to the ceremony because Ashley had a soccer game that same day. A regular season game, nothing special, but there they were, screaming from the bleachers while I received my award with my teacher sitting in the audience keeping me company. That was like the first time I really realized something was wrong. But believe me, there were so many more. My birthdays were always small and low-key because, according to my mom, I was more introverted and didn't like big celebrations, which was a lie, but whatever. It was easier to believe that than admit they didn't want to spend money on me when they could save for Ashley's massive parties. When it came time for college, my parents basically told me I had to get scholarships or work because they didn't have much to help me with, which I accepted. Whatever. I worked 2 jobs while studying and graduated with honors. Ashley entered college 3 years later and my parents paid for everything. Her apartment, her new car, her books. They even gave her a monthly allowance to go out with her friends. I was living with 4 roommates eating ramen while she posted pictures on Instagram from expensive restaurants. But you know, it was Ashley. She needed that support. She was special. She had to enjoy her full college experience. I tried not to get bitter, honestly. I tried to focus on my life and build something of my own away from all that. 2 years ago, I met Nathan at a work conference. He's 30 years old, works in software development, and is literally the most genuine and understanding person I've ever met. At first, I didn't tell him much about my family. Like I'd tell him the basics. I have a sister. We get along well. Lee. My parents live nearby. True, but wish they didn't. Things like that. But as our relationship got serious, he started noticing weird things, like how I never wanted to go to family dinners or how I'd get anxious every time my mom called. Eventually, I told him everything. Explained the complete dynamic of my family, and he couldn't believe it. Like he literally told me it sounded like a cheap dramatic movie, but he believed me because he started seeing it with his own eyes. We got engaged like 8 months ago. It was perfect. Nathan proposed to me on a hike we did one Sunday morning at our favorite spot. Nothing flashy, but totally us. When I told my parents, they were, I don't know, happy but in a kind of forced way, like fulfilling the family protocol of congratulating your daughter when she gets engaged, but you could feel they didn't care that much. My mom said something like, "Oh, how nice, honey. When are you thinking of getting married?" And when I told her October of this year, like in a few months at that point, she just nodded and changed the subject. Ashley didn't even congratulate me, just hugged me for half a second and kept talking about her job or her boyfriend Brandon or whatever the main topic of conversation was that day. Because with her, there was always a main topic. Nathan and I started planning the wedding. Nothing super elaborate because we were paying for most of it ourselves, but my parents offered to help us with the venue. They said they wanted to contribute with that at least. And honestly, it surprised me but also made me happy. Like I thought maybe things were changing. Maybe they finally saw me. We found a beautiful place, a garden with a small hall included, perfect for the number of guests we wanted, and my parents signed the contract and paid the deposit. Everything was going well. We were excited. I was genuinely happy for the first time in years about my relationship with my family. And then, like 3 months ago, my parents called me and asked me to come to their house to talk about something important. I went thinking maybe they wanted to discuss wedding details or something, but when I arrived, they were both sitting in the living room with those serious faces they make when they're going to say something they know you won't like. My dad started with this whole introduction about family and sacrifice and supporting each other, and I was there like, okay, where is this going? Until my mom finally dropped the bomb. Ashley and Brandon were thinking about getting engaged soon, probably in the next few weeks. And they wanted Ashley to have her full year of engagement to enjoy it and plan it well, so they needed me to move my wedding. I sat there processing what they had just said, like waiting for them to say just kidding or something, but they were completely serious. My mom kept talking, explaining that Ashley had always dreamed of her perfect wedding, that this was very important to her. That if I got married in October, then Ashley would feel pressured to get married quickly too, or wait too long after my wedding to not seem like she was copying me. I asked her. I seriously asked, as if I didn't already know the answer. Why couldn't Ashley just wait until the following year, or why did I have to be the one to change my plans? And my dad told me that I'm the older sister, that I should be more understanding, that Ashley is more sensitive about these things. I told them no. I told them Nathan and I already had everything planned, that our guests had already saved the date, is that I wasn't going to move my wedding because Ashley decided she wanted to get engaged right now. My mom got all dramatic, saying I had always been selfish, that I never thought about my sister, that this was typical of me putting my needs above the family. And that's when my dad dropped the real threat. He told me that if I didn't cooperate, they were going to withdraw financial support for the venue, that basically they were going to cancel the contract and we'd lose the deposit and would have to find another place with only a few months' notice. I left that house furious, like shaking with rage. I called Nathan crying and told him everything. He was just as outraged as me, but also worried, because losing the venue meant basically starting from scratch with the planning, and probably having to postpone the wedding anyway because we weren't going to find anything decent with so little time. I felt completely trapped. Like always, like my whole life. Ashley got what she wanted and I had to screw myself to make it possible. But then I remembered something. Something I had seen like a month before and hadn't given much importance to at the time. I was at my parents' house for a family dinner and Ashley left her phone on the table while she went to the bathroom, and the screen lit up with a message. I wasn't trying to snoop, but it was literally right in front of me. It was a message from someone named Tyler, and it said something like, "Miss seeing you. We should meet up soon." I didn't think much of it at that moment. Like I assumed it would be a friend or something. But something stuck with me about that interaction. The way the message sounded, I don't know, intimate. After my parents threatened to, I cancel my venue, I started thinking more about that message. And I remembered that Ashley had mentioned an ex-boyfriend named Tyler like 2 years ago, before she started dating Brandon. I started investigating a little bit, not obsessively, but looking at social media, and I found Tyler's profile. And sure enough, it was the same guy Ashley had dated. And what killed me was that on his Instagram there were recent photos, from like 3 weeks ago, where he was at the same restaurant that Ashley had posted in her story that day. At the same time, according to the timestamps. I didn't know what to do with that information. Honestly. Part of me thought maybe I was seeing things that weren't there, that I was so angry with Ashley and my parents that I was making up drama. But another part of me, the part that's known my sister forever, knew something didn't add up. Ashley has this history. It's not something that gets talked about much in the family, obviously, but she's cheated on literally all her boyfriends. In high school, she cheated on her boyfriend of 2 years with a guy from another school. In college, she dated 3 guys at the same time, without any of them knowing about the others. And as far as I knew, she had left that behavior behind with Brandon because he was, according to her, the love of her life or whatever. I told Nathan what I had found, and he told me I had to tell Brandon that he deserved to know if his girlfriend was being unfaithful to him, especially if he was about to propose. I was totally conflicted, because on one hand I liked Brandon, he was a good guy, worked in finance, and had always been kind to me, much more than any other boyfriend Ashley had ever had. But on the other hand, I knew that if I uncovered this, it was going to be war. My parents were going to hate me. My sister was going to hate me. Probably my whole extended family was going to hate me because I would be the one who destroyed Princess Ashley's perfect engagement. But, you know, what? I was fed up. I was fed up with having to stay quiet, with having to be the perfect and understanding daughter, while Ashley did whatever she wanted without consequences. I was fed up with my parents treating me like a second-class citizen in my own family. So I picked up the phone, got Brandon's number through a mutual friend, and called him. I told him I needed to talk to him about something important, that it was about Ashley, and that I knew this was going to sound weird coming from me, but I really needed him to listen. We agreed to meet at a coffee shop the next day. Brandon arrived, obviously confused, like he didn't understand why his girlfriend's sister was secretly meeting him, and I didn't blame him. I sat across from him and basically told him everything. Told him I had seen the messages with Tyler, that I had checked and confirmed they had seen each other recently, and that based on Ashley's history, I believed she was being unfaithful to him. I showed him the screenshots I had taken from Instagram, the location and time coincidences, everything. Brandon was quiet for a long while. Like you could see his brain was processing everything. He finally asked me why I was telling him this. If it was because I was angry with Ashley about something, and I was honest. I told him yes. I was angry with her and my parents over the whole wedding thing, but that didn't change the fact that he deserved to know the truth before committing to someone who was possibly lying to him. I also told him I'd understand if he didn't believe me, that he could investigate on his own if he wanted, but that I felt I had a responsibility to tell him. I didn't know what happened immediately after that conversation. Brandon left the coffee shop without saying much more, just a thanks for telling me, and that was it. I went home feeling this weird mix of relief and absolute terror, because I knew I had crossed a line there was no coming back from, and that the consequences were going to be massive. And oh, surprise, they were massive. Like, 2 days later, I got a call from my mom. She was screaming so loud, I had to hold the phone away from my ear. She told me I was a horrible person, that I had ruined my sister's life, that Brandon had confronted Ashley about the messages with Tyler and had broken up with her. Ashley apparently admitted she had been in contact with Tyler, but that they were just friends, that nothing physical had happened. But Brandon didn't believe her and ended the relationship right there. My parents were furious with me. My dad got on the phone after my mom and told me I had done this out of jealousy, out of envy, that Ashley was happier than me, and that they were officially withdrawing any support for my wedding, that they weren't going to pay for the venue or anything else, and that they probably weren't even going to attend. I hung up the phone and cried for hours. Nathan came home from work and found me a mess on the couch, and, honestly, he was my rock during all this. He hugged me and told me I had done the right thing, that Brandon deserved to know the truth, and that we were going to figure out the venue situation somehow. And we did. Like, one of Nathan's friends knew someone who had an event space that was available and was much cheaper than our original venue. It wasn't as fancy, but it was nice and functional, so we booked it with our own money. But the thing didn't end there. Not at all. My parents and Ashley started a whole smear campaign against me with the rest of the family. They told everyone I had made up lies about Ashley because I was jealous of her relationship, that I was a toxic and envious sister who couldn't stand to see Ashley happy. My aunt called to scold me. Several cousins stopped talking to me. Even my grandmother, who had always been kind of neutral in all this, told me she was disappointed in me. It was like my whole family had decided I was the devil, and Ashley was the innocent victim. What killed me was that no one, literally no one in my family, asked me for my version of events. No one said, "Hey, what really happened?" Everyone just assumed my parents and Ashley were telling the truth, and I was lying. It was incredibly painful to realize that's how little my word mattered to them, how convinced they were that I was the bad guy in the story. Nathan and I continued with the wedding plans. We sent out invitations without including my parents or Ashley, because clearly they didn't want to be there. It was weird writing those invitations knowing my immediate family wouldn't be present on one of the most important days of my life, but at the same time it was liberating in a way, like I no longer had to worry about pleasing anyone or whether Ashley was going to cause drama, or if my parents were going to be comparing everything to what they wanted to do for Ashley's wedding. Like a month later, something happened that I didn't expect at all. One of my childhood friends, Kelly, called me and told me she needed to tell me something important. Turns out that last year at her birthday party, Ashley had slept with Kelly's boyfriend in the bathroom of the house. Kelly found out when her drunk boyfriend confessed to her days later, and Kelly broke up with him immediately, but she had never told me anything because Ashley had begged her not to say anything, that it had been a mistake, that she was drunk, all the typical excuse. Kelly told me that when she found out I had exposed Ashley with Brandon, she felt guilty for not supporting me before, for keeping the secret, and she wanted me to know I was right about my sister. That Ashley did have a pattern of cheating. Honestly, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry with that information. On one hand, I felt validated. Like, yes, I wasn't crazy. Ashley really was a serial cheater, and I hadn't made anything up. But on the other hand, it hurt that Kelly had kept that secret for a whole year, especially considering we'd been friends since we were kids. I told her I appreciated her telling me, but I was upset she hadn't told me before, and she understood, apologized, and told me she was willing to tell whoever necessary about what Ashley had done if it helped me. And the thing is, it did help me, because like a week after that conversation with Kelly, I ran into Brandon by chance at a Starbucks. He approached me. He looked, I don't know, thinner and more tired than the last time I'd seen him, and he told me he wanted to thank me for telling him the truth about Ashley. He told me that after breaking up with her, he had investigated more on his own, had talked to Tyler directly, and Tyler had confirmed that yes, he had been seeing Ashley regularly for months, that they had a physical relationship, and that Ashley had told him that she and Brandon were having problems and would probably break up soon. So Ashley was literally telling her ex that her relationship with Brandon was on the rocks, while telling Brandon everything was perfect and she wanted to marry him. Brandon told me I had done the right thing by telling him that yes, it hurt a lot and he had gone through a difficult grieving process for the relationship, but that it was better to have discovered who Ashley really was before marrying her and potentially having children with her. He told me he had told several mutual friends of his and Ashley's about the infidelity, not vengefully but simply being honest, when they asked why they had broken up, and that apparently that had caused Ashley to lose her job because she worked at the same company as Brandon and several of those mutual friends, and the environment had become too uncomfortable for her, so she had quit or been fired. He wasn't completely sure of the details. I didn't know how to feel about that. Part of me felt sorry for Ashley, because losing your job and your relationship at the same time must be devastating regardless of the circumstances. But another part of me, the part that had suffered a lifetime of being the second choice, felt a dark satisfaction that finally Ashley was facing real consequences for her actions. I know that probably makes me sound horrible, but it's the truth. And I think after years of watching my sister get away with everything, it was hard not to feel some vindication. Things got even more intense when, like 2 weeks before my wedding, I received a certified letter from a lawyer. My parents were threatening to sue me for defamation. They said I had ruined Ashley's reputation with malicious lies, that they had caused her to lose her job and her relationship, and that they wanted financial compensation and a public apology. The letter was ridiculous, honestly, full of pompous legal language but basically empty of any real argument, because everything I had said was true, and there was evidence to back it up. Nathan connected me with a lawyer he knew and basically told me not to worry, that this was an intimidation tactic, and that it was very unlikely my parents would actually proceed with a lawsuit because they had no case. He told me to respond to the letter with a no thanks and move on with my life. That's what I did. I responded to my parents' lawyer saying I rejected all their demands, that everything I had said was verifiable truth, and that if they wanted to proceed with a lawsuit to go ahead, but be prepared for all the evidence of Ashley's infidelities to become public in court. I never got a response to that, so I assume the lawyer told my parents they had no chance of winning. But my parents didn't give up on their mission to make my life impossible. Like a week before the wedding, they showed up at my house unannounced, knocked on the door like crazy until I opened, and when I did, they started yelling at me right there at the entrance. My mom told me I was a disgrace to the family, that she would never forgive me for what I had done to Ashley, that I was a terrible daughter and an even worse sister. My dad was the same, yelling that they were going to go ahead with the lawsuit, that they were going to take me to court and make sure I paid for ruining my sister's life. I told them to leave my property or I was going to call the police. My mom laughed in my face and said, "Go ahead, call the police, tell them how you attacked your sister out of jealousy." But eventually they left, not before my dad yelled at me that I was dead to them, that I better not even think about contacting them again, that I was no longer their daughter. I closed the door and broke down. Nathan found me crying on the floor of the entrance and didn't know what to say. He just held me until I could calm down. The days before the wedding were a blur of preparations and anxiety. Part of me kept expecting my parents to show up on the wedding day to cause a scene or for Ashley to try to sabotage something, but Nathan hired discreet security just in case something happened. 80. Wedding was beautiful. Honestly, it was perfect despite everything. Our friends were there. Some relatives from my side who had heard my version and supported me. Nathan's whole family who had welcomed me as if I were their own daughter. I danced, laughed, cried with happiness, and for the first time in a long time I felt completely free. After the wedding and honeymoon, I came back to reality, and the reality was that my immediate family had decided to cut me completely out of their lives. There was no dramatic reconciliation. There was no movie moment where everyone realizes they were wrong and asks me for forgiveness. My parents don't talk to me. Ashley doesn't talk to me. Most of my extended family treats me like I don't exist. And you know what's crazy? I'm okay with that. Obviously, there are days when it hurts, when I missed the idea of having a normal family. But when I really stopped to think about it, I realized I never had a normal family. It was always this toxic dynamic where I was the least important and Ashley was the queen. Like 2 months after the wedding, I got a message from Kelly telling me Ashley had posted on Facebook a whole diatribe about me, saying I was a terrible person who had destroyed her life out of envy, that she had never done anything to me, and I had decided to attack her when she was at her happiest moment. I didn't even bother responding or reading the whole post. I blocked Ashley on all social media, blocked my parents too, and decided I wasn't going to spend more energy on people who clearly had never valued me. Nathan and I are building our own life now, our own family. His parents are incredible to me. They treat me with the affection and respect my own parents never gave me, and that's more than I can ask for. Yes, I sometimes miss the idea of having my mom there to ask for advice or being able to call my dad when I need help with something. But then I remember all the times they made me feel invisible, and I realize what I miss is something I never really had. The last update I have is from like a month ago. My cousin, one of the few who still talks to me, told me Ashley is dating someone new, a guy she met on a dating app, and that my parents are excited because he apparently has a good job and comes from a good family. I asked my cousin if Ashley had learned anything from this whole situation, and my cousin just laughed and said, I don't think so. She's still the same Ashley as always. Doesn't surprise me at all. Sometimes I think about how things would have been if I had kept my mouth shut, if I hadn't said anything to Brandon, if I had moved my wedding like my parents wanted. I probably would still have some kind of relationship with my family. Ashley would probably be married now, living her perfect lie of a life, and I would probably still be the invisible daughter settling for the crumbs of attention my parents gave me. But you know what? I don't regret it. For the first time in my life, I prioritized doing the right thing over keeping family peace, and although the price was high, it was worth it. I saved Brandon from making a huge mistake. I saved myself from continuing in a toxic family dynamic, and I finally stood up for myself after 28 years of being the one who always gave in. My wedding was in October like we always wanted. It was beautiful and meaningful and full of people who genuinely love and support us. Ashley didn't have her full year of engagement spotlight because there's no engagement to celebrate. My parents lost a daughter, but honestly, I think they never really had me to begin with. And I gained peace of mind, an incredible in-law family, and a husband who loves and defends me unconditionally. I think in the end I won, even though it doesn't feel like victory all the time. But I guess that's part of the process too.